The movie is constantly saying, it's constantly reminding you that evil is, of course, real. But what's even more terrifying than evil itself? It's when evil becomes mundane, when the sounds of constant human suffering blends together with the sounds of birds singing and the buzzing of honeybees. Let's go ahead, Chad, and move on to my review for the zone of interest. You know, there have been so many films, television shows, and documentaries made that have just focused on the objectively evil and horrific atrocities of the Nazis for like the last 80 years. And heart-wrenching stories of millions upon millions of families destroyed, countries obliterated, and human suffering that just shatters you down to your core. And many people would say films like Life is Beautiful, The Pianist, Sophie's Choice, Schindler's List, and so many others do a brilliant job of capturing that suffering, but also providing you the means to have profound empathy and sympathy for those that went through those horrible events. But what if you have a movie that approaches that subject matter, the systematic evil that was the Nazis and their extermination of Jews, Slavs, gays, political enemies, anyone they despised, from a banal and mundane point of view? Well, you would get a movie like Jonathan Glazier's The Zone of Interest. But, you know, before getting into this very different type of Holocaust movie, I do want to provide some context, for it. The film follows Rudolf Höss, the commandant of the concentration camp Auschwitz, and his wife and family as they build an idyllic home in life next to the infamous camp and its many horrors hidden behind its tall walls. Now, the entire point of this film is made abundantly clear by Glazer and his collaborators. Instead of what we would come to expect with a Holocaust film that often provides a really intimate look into the human suffering of its characters, this one opts to approach the events and most human interactions in a sterile and completely apathetic way. Yes, we are introduced to Höss, his wife, and 5 children, his big family, but we never get to know them as people once. We're almost like ghosts, flies on the wall, observing them in their just day-to-day lives, their mundane lives, watching them play with their children from afar, having meals at the dinner table and garden parties and birthday parties. Never a moment of true intimacy between many of them. Lighting as flat as it would be in my home or your own home with your own families. All the while, we hear the human suffering in Auschwitz. I also read, doing research and prep for this review, that they actually set up hidden cameras in the house in which they filmed. And so the actors weren't actually aware of where the camera was or how they were being shot. They were just told, this is the scene, this is where you'll be, and just do it. And they were kind of left to their own devices completely. So we just have so many of these just sterile, flat shots, sometimes from afar, sometimes like a medium shot, and sometimes close, but it's always weird. It's awkward. It's inhuman the way we're looking at these people. The sound design in this movie is incredible. It's very, very good. From the screaming, the gunshots, the obvious sounds of constant death mixed with assembly line industrial efficiency. It's disgusting, it's depressing, but it just creates that atmosphere of dread. Despite never once seeing into the camp itself. We never set foot inside the camp. We don't peer into it. Again, it's purposely apathetic, much like the characters, themselves. Even when Höss and his family come across certain things from the camp, evidence from the camp, like for instance, Höss finding a jawbone, a mandible in the nearby river his kids are playing in because the Nazis are dumping the ashes and human remains in it. It's shot in such a way where we at first can't really tell exactly what he found, what it is. And it's constantly keeping us disconnected from them as people because they themselves are so disconnected from it too. For instance, the mother of Höss's wife, his mother-in-law, she comes to visit at some point in the movie, and she's horrified by something that she witnesses. And she ends up leaving a note for her daughter, and the daughter later finds this and reads the note, and she gets upset at one point. But we never see what's on the note. We never see what the mother's trying to express to her daughter. Again, it's not, we're not involved with these people in any capacity. There's no true human drama. A simple conversation between two characters about a former employer who was a Jew, who they even say, might be in the camp for all they know. Might be might be across the wall, but they just say it with a shrug. But they're probably over there, I guess. But look what we do at the wall over here. We put up these vines, put up these tomato plants, and I think it looks really nice. That's what this movie does. The movie is constantly saying, it's constantly reminding you that evil is, of course, real. But what's even more terrifying than evil itself? It's when evil becomes mundane, when the sounds of constant human suffering blends together with the sounds of birds singing and the buzzing of honeybees. And it does that constantly for nearly 2 hours. The movie's about hour 45, hour 50. Now, I respect what this movie is saying and its message that it gets across in spades. But I did not enjoy watching this film, not because of the material, but because of its, I guess, just banal approach to everything, with the exception of perhaps one moment towards the end. It has significant pacing issues, this film. And, we're so often just confined to one place. And the dialogue itself is also very mundane, and that doesn't always make it very compelling or very interesting. Hell, even the film's opening might piss people off. The film literally opens up with a black screen with music that just plays for about 3 minutes, and then we get to the first scene of the film. So people might be sitting there going what's going on? I think as a 30 to 45 minute short film, Glazer would still be able to get his point across very easily and concisely. And perhaps that would be even more impactful. But at the same time, I could also see people arguing, he wanted the film to feel as long as it is to just hammer home the point that human apathy towards evil can be mundanely paced as just a normal day with one's family. And, if that's the case, I can at least appreciate a lot of what he did and his collaborators and filmmakers did, even if it wore out its welcome but by the end. I think this is probably going to be a very divisive movie for audiences and for many film goers. I know a lot of critics have praised this, and obviously it's nominated for a whole bunch of Oscars. And there's a lot to appreciate about this, and a lot I really, really respect. But this is not an easy watch. It's not let's put on the Zone of Interest today. I'm feeling in the zone. I'm interested in that zone. No, you're not. I think for a lot of people, this is going to be a one and done. Maybe they'll respect it. I respect this movie to a degree. There's going to be a lot of people that are pissed off because how it takes its time and the pacing issues, I think, will throw a lot of people off, and you have people frustrated. I do think it's a movie that will be studied. I think this is a good film for people to study that want to know the impact of sound design and sound mixing. I think like coming away from this film, that is what I perhaps most appreciate on a technical level. Like I really appreciate the message of evil and how apathetic evil is terrifying. Because that's exactly what the Nazis, are, is the apathy of their actions, how they just like, it's done with a shrug. It's done like a 9-to-5 job, the systematic extermination of Jews, of Slavs, of gays, of political prisoners, of anyone they despised or anyone that they thought was undesirable, right? It's that, like, I respect that. I think that's brilliant. And how, people perceive others and how there's an apathetic attitude to human suffering. I think that's great. But on a technical level, I think the sound design is great and probably should be studied, and how you can just mix that. Like there's constant, it's always in the background. Like for the majority of the film, like it's always there. And it's really disconcerting. And it won't make you feel very good. But I admire that that's what the film made me feel. And for that, it has my respect, even if I thought it was too long and the pacing didn't always work. And there were some choices that, at the end of the day, I felt may have worked against the film itself. But a lot to respect. However, I'm very curious to hear what audiences think of this film. I know what the critics are saying. I know it's got nominated for all of these awards, of course, but very curious to hear what everyday audiences are saying about this. It's currently back in theaters right now as a limited release thanks to the Oscars, and it's also available on VOD to purchase. And other platforms have it as well. But I guess what about you guys? Those of you who have seen this movie, what do you think of it? Did you enjoy it? Were you, I don't know, more mixed on it, or do you have a respect for it like I did, but also found certain things frustrating, or did you just downright hate the movie? I'm actually very, very curious to know. Please, as always, let me know.